That's correct.
I would agree with that. I think it's a function of streaming all kinds of stuff takes a certain kind of web page technology that the township's page may not currently have, but there's no reason they couldn't add it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a link. If they link it to wherever it is on the YouTube, then you just click on the meeting date and it links you right to it.
Oh, okay, yeah, not having it actually on the website.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be on it.
Gentlemen, I don't mean to interrupt. I just want to update you. All the links for the recorded meetings are now on the zoning board page.
Ah, excellent. Thank you,
They
Brian.
are?
There's only 4 of them because we only started recording in mid-March or April. Loretta, you can let me know, but all the ones that we have on record are on the zoning board page.
Now, are there plans when we go back live to continue recording them?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how yet, but there are plans.
Well, isn't there a camera mounted on the wall up there above the doorway?
I haven't been in that courtroom in about over a year. I don't know.
I mean, I guess that's one of the issues with regard to resuming live meetings, that the need to be able to do all of those things. I just went on to the Township Zoning Board page and I see 4 links to various videos.
Brian, Sarika and Valerie are both in the waiting.
And the links take you right to the YouTube page.
All right, well, that's good progress.
Yeah,
There we go.
good.
Hi,
evening.
everybody.
Hi, Val. Hi, Sarika.
Hey, can I ask
Hello.
you guys a question? I just heard from somebody I know that the townhouses on 35, that a section of them are in Holmdel. So that section will go to Holmdel schools. Did anybody hear that?
I never heard a thing
Which
about that.
townhouse?
Talking about the Target development by the Target?
Yeah.
No,
They're part of that in Holmdel, huh?
the one on the south side of 35?
Yeah.
That development is all but about 3 or 4 acres in Middletown. The 3 or 4 acres that are in Holmdel are all wetlands and are not being built on, and they're
Oh,
sort of
okay.
behind TD Bank. And there's a Mahoris Park there,
Yeah.
was acquired out of a tax sale, something like that. Wetlands, none of the construction is in Holmdel.
Oh, okay.
So I would.
Because I guess a realtor told someone that some of the townhouses were going to be that some of the development was going to be in Holmdel with a Holmdel mailing address. Okay. I hadn't heard that, so that's why I was
Then
wondering.
we would have had to have a hearing on that. It would
That's
have been on the
correct.
Well,
planning
probably
board.
would have had to go to the planning board because
Yeah.
it's a development.
Yep,
Right, yeah, but there was absolute no construction on the Holmdel 2 or 3 acres.
Okay, thank you.
All right, it's a little after 7:01. Do you want to get started?
Sure, go ahead. Jerry, you want to start? Okay, we're live and we're being recorded. So, Jerry, you want to read the call to order, please?
In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-10, and regulations governing remote meetings, NJAC 5:39-1.5, I hereby declare this meeting of the Holmdel Township Zoning Board to be open and announce that adequate and electronic notice of this meeting was provided in notices dated January 8th, 2021 and June 11th, 2021. Notices were sent to the Asbury Park Press, Two River Times, and posted on the bulletin board and on the main access door to Town Hall. Notices were filed in the clerk's office and posted on the township's website at www.holmdeltownship.com. There will be an opportunity for members of the public to ask questions and provide comments once the meeting is open to the public. At that time, you will need to use the raise your hand feature on the bottom of the screen, and you will be invited into the meeting by the chairperson one at a time. You will need to have audio and video capability. You will be sworn in and asked to provide your name and address for the record. If you have any technical difficulties, please contact the phone number listed in the webinar information below.
Thank you, everyone, and welcome to the June 16th, 2021 meeting of the Holmdel Zoning Board of Adjustment. Please be informed that we are not going to be holding any hearings tonight, and hence there will not be, we anticipate, any opportunity for public comment. Roll call, please.
Ms. Havern,
Here.
Mr. Blumenthal,
Here.
Mr. Buffalino,
Here.
Ms. Campus. Here. Mr. Hearn, Mr. Orphanatopoulos,
Here.
Mr. Pesci, Ms. Kalor,
Yes.
and Mr. Latif.
Please rise for a pledge of allegiance, and then they stay standing for a moment of silence for honor our troops home and abroad and our first responders. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
Of America.
and the republic in which it stands,
And one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you and good evening. We'll move on to item 1. And please let Thomas Hennessy into the meeting.
Ralph,
Yes,
do you want to address the second item, the public hearing? Just in case there's anybody.
none of this will take very long.
Okay,
Anyway, first I want to, since we have 2 regular members that are absent, I want to seat Ms. Kalur and Mr. Latif on the 2 absent members for all matters on tonight's agenda.
okay.
Okay, so we've got Mr. Hennessy. You can turn your video on and unmute yourself, Mr. Hennessy. Okay,
Hey, we're here.
good. Welcome. Jerry, you want to read we're
Excuse
going
me,
to item 1 on the agenda.
excuse me 1 second. If you could let Mr. Rose in, I believe that's the attorney.
Mhm.
Is that your attorney?
Yes, Mr. Rose, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, please. Okay, fine. Welcome, Mr. Rose. You can turn on your video and unmute yourself.
Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, go ahead, Jerry.
Thomas and Diane Hennessy, 292 Middle Road, Block 56, lots 4.4.01 and 6, subdivision number 654. Applicant requested extension of time to perfect the subdivision approved by the zoning board in 2017. The delays were due to an appeal of the approval before the Superior Court. Delays related to outside agency approvals as well as revisions to the proposed subdivision deeds.
Let me just ask our attorney, Mr. Flager, to just briefly explain what this application is about, because it took place before I know myself and a number of the other board members were on the board.
So it was a subdivision. There were 3 lots existing. They were very odd shaped, and the Hennessy's house was on one lot, and there were some dilapidated structures on the others. And one was actually a postage size stamp lot. So they asked that they consolidate them and re-subdivide them to 3 essentially equal size lots, one which contained the Hennessy home and the other 2 for future development. That was in fact granted by the board. There was an issue with notice. We had allowing one of the neighbors to give objection testimony. So we reopened the hearing for them. And that's why there's a delay between the May and October dates, when this originally was approved and when it was reapproved. At that point, it was reapproved, and within about 2 weeks, the neighbor had filed a lawsuit which lasted at least about 1.5 years through the courts. The approval was upheld eventually, and that took us into around 2019 I'm sorry, last year, I think, we finally got the approval from the courts. During that time, obviously, the Hennessy's were not going to proceed, given the potential for a negative outcome with the courts. And I think the subdivision deed was never recorded in that window of time for a minor subdivision, which was 190 days.
Okay, Mr. Rose,
Yes, thank you.
tell us why you're here and what it is you're after.
Yes, as we've gone over, the subdivision was approved in 2017, delayed for several years due to the ongoing litigation. Since that time, the Hennessy's have been working very hard to achieve resolution compliance, get all outside agency approvals, but they've been delayed for several reasons. There's delays in receiving the government approvals, delays due to COVID, delays due to plans and maps not being drafted correctly and having to go back and resubmit them. And I've been working with the Hennessy's personally over the last year to bring them into compliance so that they're ready to perfect the subdivision. And I know over the last year, they've been working diligently to achieve resolution compliance and perfect the subdivision. And we've reached the final step where we've achieved everything we need to do. And as far as resolution compliance, all we need is an extension of time so that we can perfect the subdivision and allow the Hennessy's to move on with their lives.
What was the original date of final approval, and what time period is that approval valid for that and I know that got extended with some of the pandemic extensions that were done. So what dates are we now dealing with that you need to extend from?
Right. So pursuant to the NJSA 4055 D21, the period of approval is tolled during litigation. So litigation was concluded in July of 2019. And since that time, the Hennessy's have been working to achieve resolution compliance, and pursuant to NJSA 4055 D47, since the delays were caused by the delay in obtaining government approvals, we've only just finished everything we need to do. And so the time has been told, and we asked the board to grant this extension.
So the extension would be from when to when?
Just look through my notes one moment.
Because we usually for granting extensions, we usually are date specific.
Right, I understand. I think this case is a little bit different because, well, the lengthy amount of time was the litigation, but since that time, Dr. Hennessy can tell you everything he's done to obtain government approvals, and we just received the last government approval today from the Soil and Conservation District. So if you would allow Mr. Hennessy to testify, he can tell you the effort he put in before I was involved. So to get that factual information on the record.
I think Mr. Rose would just, I think the chairman was just asking, how much time do you need? If we're going to extend this, I think that the resolution needs to say we're going to extend it for a period of 30 more days or whatever. We all believe the time period is, the maximum time period is based on all the impediments that you've encountered, both the litigation and the governmental delays. So how much time do you need? And first question, how much time do you think you need to get your subdivision map filed or your deed, whatever you're filing?
I think 30 days will be more than adequate. We have everything already approved from the township attorney and the planning board. We just need to get them to sign off on it and we'll file. So 30 days will be adequate.
You said some planning board. Was there also a planning board involvement?
Oh, just to execute the subdivision deed.
Just have to sign. Yeah, no,
Excuse me, can I speak? Can I speak?
Hey, Marty, I have a
Yes,
question.
can I speak?
Yep.
Just hold
go
on.
ahead.
Adrian.
Thomas Hennessy, 292 Middle Road. I would like the extension to be greater than 30 days because I have run into multiple problems with getting this done. It's been years. I would think at least 90 days would be adequate. I still have to approach the bank because there was a conservation easement involved, and I have to get bank approval before I can file the deed. So if 90 days is amenable to the board, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Dimitri?
Hey, Marty, trying to remember, and Valerie's probably the only other one that remembers, wasn't there some sort of an issue with a septic system? And was that put in a special condition and then?
No, there was.
That was the
the-
reason for the lawsuit, I think, because
right.
of
Yes.
the neighbor's septic system on
Right,
the
well, they
property.
didn't, that wasn't the excuse in the lawsuit, but that was the underlying issue. There's a very small home right in the middle of the frontage of the Hennessy's property along Middle Road,
Computer froze.
which is a separate lot. And their septic, it was determined during our hearing, is actually on the Hennessy's property. And we had indicated at the time, that's a private, that's between private owners. We were not going to get involved in that. So that wasn't our issue. That's something they had to resolve amongst themselves. But in fact, that then led to a lawsuit claiming our approval was arbitrary. But I think that was probably the underlying reason. I don't know if the Hennessy's have an update, whatever happened with that, or if that person's still living there, but that was an issue.
I would like an update on it.
Mr. Hennessy, or could you comment on that?
Not sure he heard the question.
Okay, my computer went in and out. I apologize. What happened was I contacted Holmdel because the neighbor is in violation of Holmdel ordinance for sewer hookup, and they have been so for a number of years. They were granted a certificate of occupancy when they really shouldn't have been, because they should have been hooked up to sewer years ago. That said, the township agreed to enforce the code, and then for a reason no one's explained to me, they suddenly dropped the charges in April of 2021. But in all the ordinance of township, the neighbors should have been hooked up to sewer, and to this day is in violation of the township's code. That's as far as I am with the sewer issue.
Does that's answer your question, Dimitri?
I guess it just seems a little odd for me with this going on, continuing with that, even though Marty mentioned that's a private matter. It just seems a little odd for us to have that on our plate.
Yeah, but that's independent of what they're here for, which is
Right.
a request for an extension.
Right, that's right.
So then what, I don't know when the various approval expired with, or considering the tolling. So
They used up 14 days before the litigation was filed, if that helps. And that was.
so does that bring us to today? So do they need an extension starting today going forward, the 30 or
Well,
90 days?
Mr. Rose needs to tell us when he finished the governmental impediments. I'm not sure when that was finished, but Mr. Rose, do you have a specific date when the last of your governmental issues was resolved?
Well, the last governmental approval we received was today, June 16th, from the Soil and Sediment Control with the Freehold Soil District. Prior to that, we had been working with the township engineer to ensure that the conservation easement meets and bounds were correct, and ensure that the deed restriction that we're going to impose on the property had the correct language and information within it. So we got all the deed restriction stuff done just a week or two ago, a couple of weeks ago, excuse me. But the government approval, the last one we received was today.
So if you use that math and based on Mr. Rose's letter of the litigation, which was obvious, and the delays in the governmental approvals, which, you know, we take his word for, I assume, they have essentially 190 days minus 14 days. So clearly 90-day request is within that period of time. And,
Okay,
that's a
so
reasonable
you're saying for this kind of situation, the maximum we can grant is 180 days, or does the?
It's 190 is by statute from when the resolution was memorialized, subject to the legal reasoning that Mr. Rose gave that would result in an extension. So there really is no language of should the extension be 176 days, which is the balance of the 190 days from when the litigation was filed, because everything then flowed right after that, or should it be something less? There's nothing that says that, but I would suggest that since they've asked for 90, that that's well within the 174 days left, that we just grant them a 90-day extension.
So the 174 is not automatic.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
There's nothing, it doesn't talk about that. It just says a tolling. So in theory, by extension of the tolling language, you could argue they're entitled to 174 more days. They're not asking for that. So I would, unless Mr. Rose corrects me, I would suggest we just grant the 90-day extension, which was what they asked for.
Do any other board members have any other questions about this application for an extension?
Yeah, just for my own edification, what does it mean to perfect the subdivision?
File a map, or for a minor, you can file a deed. That's once the filing of that deed or the filing of the map is the perfection of the minor of the subdivision.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
You can't file the map until all your resolution compliance items are resolved. The town will not sign off on, and the chair of the planning board has to sign that as well. That can't be done until all their resolution compliance items are finished.
and the
That
filing
were
deed is with the county clerk who maintains
correct.
the records of all deeds. And so that's when the subdivision becomes official.
Correct.
It's only a piece of paper until then.
But they do need the planning board signature, and obviously the planning board cannot sign that until resolution compliance has been achieved. And you've heard Mr. Rose's explanation of why they couldn't get resolution compliance.
Okay, any other questions from any of the other board members about this application? Hearing none, then it's appropriate to consider is there a motion to approve the granting of a 90-day extension starting from today?
I'll make a motion that we approve a 90-day extension starting from today to perfect the minor subdivision as requested.
Is
I
there a
second.
second?
I second.
Any discussion on the motion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Savran,
Yes.
Mr. Buffalino,
Yes.
Ms. Campus,
yes,
Mr. Afanatopoulos,
Yes.
Mr. Blumenthal,
Yes.
Ms. Kalor,
Yes.
and Ms. Latif.
You're muted.
You're muted, Irfan.
Still muted.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you. Well,
thanks. Okay,
okay, you have your extension. We will memorialize this in the memorializing resolution. Our next meeting is until July, so that won't get formally approved until the July meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but I just remind as you heard, it's from today, regardless of when the resolution gets memorialized. So definitely want to get started on your final compliance.
Yes, thank you very much. We appreciate it, and hopefully we'll get this subdivision complete.
Great.
Thanks, Marty. Take care.
Thanks. See you, Mr. Hennessy, Mrs. Hennessy.
Thank you.
bye-bye.
bye-bye.
Good night.
Okay, item 2. Jerry?
New Horizon Properties LLC, 494 Middle Road, preliminary/final site plan number 2019-3, block 56, lot 1. Applicant proposes to develop the property as a convenience store with a fuel service facility. Property presently consists of a one-story masonry building/garage. The applicant proposes to demolish the existing structure on the property and construct a 3,000 square foot convenience store and fueling area consisting of 6 fuel pumps.
We've had a couple of hearings on this matter already. We were going to continue the hearing tonight. However, at the request of the applicant, this is going to be carried to our August meeting. Loretta, what's the date?
August 18th.
August 18th, without further notice to the public.
We should make it, we should state that it's anticipated the meetings start in July, including August, will be in-person meetings.
And we'll discuss that shortly.
Yep, so they should, anybody in the public that's listening should realize that they need to attend the meeting if in fact it's open, if it's a public meeting. There will be no Zoom credentials, and they'll have to show up at the meeting if they have any comments to make. And Loretta, you'll be posting that, right?
I was just gonna say, the Friday before the meeting, the August 18th meeting, the agenda will be posted and it will have whether it's in person, which I anticipate, or remote, which I think it's gonna be in person.
Great.
And the logistics will be different, and that's going to be worked out, and I'll comment about that for the board a little bit later when we finish the other items. Okay, going on then to item 3.
A&E Associates, Verde Woods, residential development, block 50.13, lot 1, zoning board variance 2015-4. Applicant granted approval on December 20th, 2017. Applicant granted an additional 1-year extension retroactive from December 21st, 2020, end of previous extension, to December 19th, 2021.
Okay, this is a memorializing resolution which we received a draft of from Marty earlier this week. I forget when I got it. No, over the weekend, but whatever. Does anyone have any additions, corrections, or comments on the draft resolution that we've received?
No.
If there are none, is there a motion to approve the resolution as offered by Mr. Flager?
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
Hold on one sec. Jerry, you missed that meeting on,
I
yeah, on May 5th, so,
That's
There were 2
correct.
different hearings on this, I think.
right.
Okay.
So, somebody else?
Dimitri, you're muted. You look like you're trying to say something.
I said, I guess I'm one of the ones that can make one,
Yes,
so.
yes, you can. Do I have a second to someone that can make it?
Fine, I'll
Val-
second it. Yeah.
Valerie?
Good. Any discussion or other, correct?
Thank you, Valerie.
Under protest, I'll
Yeah.
second it.
Okay, in that case, roll call, please.
Miss Avron,
Yes.
Miss Campus,
Yes.
Mr. Urbanitopoulos,
Yes,
Mr. Blumenthal,
Yes.
and Mr. Latif.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, then, just wrapping up, there's what's been mentioned that go into a little bit more detail about going back toward live meetings. I know some of you have been interested in this. The township had a special meeting for discussing financial matters yesterday morning. And they also approved a resolution that the township committee will be going back to in-person meetings starting next week. I discussed the matter with Sharon Roundtree, the township administrator. The various boards can act independently. And so just a brief discussion on some of the considerations as to what's going on about going back to live meetings. Clearly, the situation with the pandemic has dramatically improved in this county, in New Jersey, in Monmouth County, in Holmdel. However, it's not gone to zero yet. We hope it will soon, but it may take a little bit of time. There's also concerns about follow-up surges, like the next week or two, there might be a surge that followed up some events that happened over Memorial Day. There's concern I discussed by one doctor I talked to about a potential surge again in the fall. So everything is going to be on a sort of a conditional case-by-case basis. We'll have to take it slow and see what makes sense. There is certainly a suggestion that we can go back to live in-person meetings for the July meeting. Some people feel it appropriate to be cautious. I personally do, as an older person with some other health issues, that feel we need to be careful. That's not to say we can't try to proceed. In talking with Sharon, Bonnie, Loretta, staff, they need to be able to set things up so we can go back to in-person meetings safely. What would most likely happen, and this hence needs to be coordinated because they don't want to have different physical setups for the different groups. But they will want to try to set things up in the town hall meeting room because that's where most of the technology is. There was a suggestion of maybe going over to the community center where the township has on occasion held meetings where there's a lot more space and it's easier to spread out. But the technology isn't all there all the time, the way it is in the main town hall meeting room. That they would, instead of having the dais is set up for a township committee of 5, but there are more than 5 of us. So what they would probably seek to do, set up some additional tables so that we can be socially distanced, 6 feet apart, and have the technology there with appropriate microphones. The township committee did start recording their meetings from that room, and that would be so set up so that they could live stream the meeting to either from the township webpage or via YouTube while the meeting is happening. However, that would be a one-way thing. And to order to be able, if someone wanted to make a question or a comment, they would have to be in the room to be able to do so. So all of that's being worked on. I know Bonnie and Loretta are going to be meeting with Sharon tomorrow to discuss some of the logistics involved. Also in question is the notice procedure to make sure that the proper notice about where is the meeting? Is it going to be Zoom? Is it not? We certainly have the option of switching back if necessary. The Zoom technology still exists and won't go away. So the thinking is that we should, and I spoke with both Kate and Bob Bucko today. They've had the experience of with some of the other municipalities that they work have just started in the last week going back to live meetings, and consistently everybody is starting this on a so to speak trial, let's see if we can make it work basis, but with distancing and not the same packed rooms for the meetings. So that's the thoughts. I don't know what the various board members, if you have any thoughts. Certainly, if you don't have a thought now, please go ahead and feel free to express it. If you wish instead to, call Loretta or myself tomorrow or next week, or if the circumstances changes, the data changes, we should certainly reevaluate the situation. And certainly my own concern is not just my own health, but for all of us. We want to be safe. We want to be healthy. We don't want to have a pandemic here in the zoning board. Other thoughts and comments?
Irfan here, I certainly agree with you on the health concerns, as you said, also having pre-existing conditions. Have you considered the hybrid approach like you have sometimes in a school system, where some members who are in the room and others can join remotely as necessary on the Zoom?
I haven't thought about it. I think Loretta, Brian, who's one of the tech people who is helping host this meeting, is present. I don't know if he can comment on that, but that it's certainly something that Loretta should be aware of and can mention to Sharon and the other people. If the township doesn't have as much technology as, say, the school systems has, and that's certainly an appropriate suggestion for people to consider.
And we had talked about that being in the last year, I think, or some people raised that. I think there was some hesitancy or a reason why people weren't thinking that was not a good idea. I have to go back and revisit that. I don't know if Loretta remembers if she was part of that, but It was definitely thrown out as a discussion point a few months ago. And it was nixed by the township at the time.
Brian, do you have any insight into that?
I think that would be a higher up discussion than me. I think that'd be a Sharon conversation. So maybe something to bring up, Loretta, tomorrow with Sharon in your meeting. Technology wise, I'm not sure. We'd have to speak to our IT director to see if it's something that's possible.
It's certainly a different technology.
Yeah, so possible with what we have. Yes, correct.
Marty, is there any legal things that you know about with this kind of setup?
Well, we're working under these DCA guidelines right now, and they're DCA regulations, but they're not in the municipal land use. So we're kind of on new ground to start with, right? So that would probably take us into further new ground if we start doing a hybrid. I don't remember again the discussion, but I think Mike Collins was involved at the time. So it was definitely something they were not looking favorably upon for all those reasons. But times have changed. So I think a discussion with Mike and Sharon is probably very appropriate.
Okay.
So I think, if Loretta, you can bring it up to Sharon tomorrow and at least start the discussion that, if certain individuals have difficulty with the live thing, that could they then come in remotely the way in some sort of a hybrid thing? It's another potential additional step.
Now, are we going to continue with video recording, or are we going to have a stenographer come back to the meetings?
Well, video for sure.
Mhm.
The
So it's
township
recorded.
that they will be, the township was just prior to the pandemic starting to record their own meetings in the town hall.
So we don't need a stenographer.
That's a different legal question.
Marty?
Well,
Say something.
most applicants want them especially if it has a lot of potential controversy. We've always taken, Holmdel has always had them. But a lot of times, some towns don't, the applicants bring their own in. But if at the end of the day, this stenographer, I think we even have a stenographer on these video things. Is that right, Loretta?
Well,
So-
Mr. Pape, unbeknownst to me, did have a stenographer on the last meeting.
Yeah.
So I think I sent out the transcript, but I didn't know that was happening.
Do
As
we have
far
our
as-
own? Do you have your? No.
That wasn't ours.
My understanding from the transmittal letter of that is that the stenographer didn't listen to it live, but listened to the recording afterwards.
Okay. I
And
didn't know
worked
that.
from the recording. That's how I read the transmittal letter.
At the end of the day, if there's an appeal, somebody needs to have a court stenographer transcript submitted to the court. So.
Right. As far as when we did have a court reporter, which was every meeting, they were always billed to the applicant. So if there were three, I'm just making this up, if there were 3 backyards scheduled and she was charging $300 for a meeting, they were each billed $100 for her services.
Loretta, you might bring that up to Mr. Pape, because if for August, that if the switching from Zoom to live may impact how he wants to deal with that.
Okay.
Because the planning testimony is critical for their presentation.
Yeah, and we now have to record these Zoom meetings. I mean, even if it's live, I don't know if we have to record those, right? So what becomes official? I would definitely want a court reporter if we're in the building. That just makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Well, in the past, the bigger applications such as this, they would usually hire a court reporter.
Right.
Well, as far as I'd like to say something in terms of Zoom meetings. I think we should be conservative for the next couple of months even and stay on Zoom and see how it pans out. I feel there's no rush. I'm sure you've had live meetings. I haven't witnessed them, but you have this technology, and let's see in the next couple of months when everything is opening up, what the COVID situation is going to be like.
As a physician, we're all very conservative in our groups as well, in our offices. And I think even a couple of months, let the summer pan out, and we'll see how the numbers are doing, and there's no rush. That's my opinion.
How do other members feel?
So I understand, obviously, the health concerns that some may have, but I respectfully disagree. I think people, including maybe people here who are voicing objections, are going into stores, they're eating in restaurants, they're getting together with people and socializing. Last year, when we all were virtually hermits, obviously there's a reason why we didn't have in-person meetings. But now life is resumed without restriction in New Jersey, including concerts and mass get-togethers. And being together as a group in person is extremely critical. You build group chemistry, the way we discuss things. It's very difficult, I find, to function like this on Zoom meetings, and really have never been able to even meet many of you in person because you joined this board during this pandemic. And so I really feel it's critical that we get together and have meetings in person. Now, look, the town can install barriers if people feel that way, similar to how some schools did it. I have it in my office where there's plexiglass either between you or in front of you that would give people a feeling perhaps of more security, that someone is not directly breathing or spraying, saliva on them when they speak. And you could have some sort of security that way. But I feel it's very important to get back together unless the virus spikes in some way and means that we have to reconsider. So that's my view.
My view is a ditto on Valerie's. I think we need to be in person, being involved with boards for many, many years. This is a challenge doing this. It's one thing doing a little background variance, but doing something like the Horizons where it's commercial, or any other future ones that are that may be coming down the pipe. To do that like this is an injustice for not only the applicant, but for the residents. And I think that we need to be in person, and I think Loretta will work with them to figure out those that have concerns about being quarantined or isolated or protected or whatever you want to call it. You could work that out so they feel safe wherever they're sitting. I personally don't have a problem with it being on the first aid squad. I've been through the whole pandemic on the squad, and I'm perfectly fine after all of that. So I have no problem being at any meeting and sitting wherever you want me to sit, and that's how I feel.
Other, if you want to express an opinion, please do.
I want to make a comment. I just want to say, I don't know how you feel about this, but if it is a new horizon, it's going to be a lot of people in the room together. And I'm just putting it out there. The professionals involved on the other side alone is a large group. So I'm just putting it out there because that room's really not that big.
Well, you open up the back doors and open up the outside door up on the dais, and you'll have air circulation.
Right.
I mean,
I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah, Loretta, I was concerned about the crowds involved with this application from before we started.
Mm-hmm.
In that I know on one or two other applications in that part of town, Hazlitt has turned out in mass. I've been surprised that we haven't had more listeners. And
right, nobody's chimed in on these calls. So.
On the recent family apartments on Middle Road, they had an attorney, they had, you name it. None of them have chimed in at all on this application. We need to be careful though. If there's for sure any hint of really a large turnout, then I think we need to push the township, if there is to be a live meeting, that it say be in the community center where there's much more space than in the town hall, even with the door open.
And another reason to go hybrid, Ralph, is that when you have such large meetings, you can have the professionals and the panel in the room and say public can log in online and comment from there.
I think that's a very appropriate suggestion. I think, again, Loretta, please bring that potential up with the other staff tomorrow.
I'm not sure you can do that legally.
No.
Marty, can
You
you
know,
have a
if
live
somebody
meeting
wants
and
to,
bar the
somebody wants to
public?
be there, and how are you gonna tell them they can't be there? How do you select who can be there?
It's an
and who
open
can't?
public meeting. You can't
Yeah.
tell someone they can't come in a room.
That's part of the reason why I think no one wanted to touch it when we talked about it briefly a few months ago. But I mean, I think, Ralph brought up, and we have the senior center. I'm not sure why that's not a reasonable alternative site. I mean, there's no requirement that we have to record this. We don't need that technology. We may want to record it, but if we can't, we still have a stenographer there. We have a fully compliant meeting. There's also possibly maybe the library or something like that. I don't know if that's bigger or smaller, but it seems to me I'd rather go to a bigger room and have everyone available, or don't do it at all if we can't accommodate them.
I feel if you just give it a month, we've done it this far, see what the spikes are, because I know we're vaccinated, but there are other countries which opened up despite vaccination and there were spikes. I feel even if you waited a month and just see what the aftermath is, that would probably be prudent.
What's on in July, Loretta? Do we have any major application or just backyard?
I have 3 backyards. One is for a built-in pool. Another one is for a house on the village on Main Street. They want to, it's a floor area ratio. They want to square off the top. And the third one is for a retaining wall height and setbacks.
So I guess the date of the meeting was previously set as part of our annual calendar.
Right.
But how much lead time do you and the township staff really need to make the final decision on whether it is live or not, or Zoom?
Well, I'm going to have to provide these applicants with a Zoom note. If it's Zoom, it has to be published at least 10 days prior to the hearing. So there is a little.
The newspaper's 14. By the time you get it to the newspaper, it's really 14 days.
Yeah.
You mail it to them.
Loretta, can you ask because there's 3 different applicants, assuming we're live that day, can you ask them to wait in their cars or outside, and that you'll let them know when it's their turn to come in, so that we don't have unnecessary people sitting in the meeting?
If that's the way we decide to go, I mean, did you want to do that? Do you want to do Zoom for July? It's not up to me.
No, I said in person was my meaning. They would wait outside, right?
I think, what Marty's schedule says, we don't need to make an absolute final decision today, but certainly before the 1st of July.
Correct. Right. I
To
agree.
permit people to make Loretta and the staff to give the proper official notices and for all the legal processes to work through. So I think the township is tending to want to go to an in-person meeting for July. However, if anyone we still have a couple of weeks to think about it. If anybody has any serious concerns and absolutely says no to in-person, please let me and/or Loretta know. And we can put that into the hopper of considerations as to what to do.
Ralph, what was the reason why senior center was not a good idea? Did somebody say that?
I forget. Well, I think it may have been in my discussion with Bonnie that it was gonna take work to set up the town hall meeting room in a new configuration with potentially some tables and chairs and microphones and all of that. Whenever they've done the community center, it's been a temporary setup. So they want to hopefully set the town hall meeting room up so it's a bit more of a permanent new configuration. I don't know if they'll consider plastic barriers for some of it, for example.
Because they can jam us in more than the town meetings, and if we have to put some members down on the lower level, that's going to obviously reduce the crowd sizing more. And
correct. And so I think I have not heard, the township committee, it's one thing, they have a smaller number of people.
Right.
But for the zoning and planning boards with larger numbers, they have to do something, and also to have an additional microphones for those additional spread out tables and chairs. So I think Bonnie's implication was let's get one setup working and not necessarily have to do two. But so it's logistics.
Gotcha.
But still, if there is to be a larger crowd, I think the community center is definitely a better location than the town hall meeting room.
Okay.
Jerry, do you have your hand up or? No, okay.
I'm good either way, honestly, because I understand the concern Dr. Kalor is raising. I mean, we walk into places that are crowded now, but if you're in stores or restaurants, the service is still wearing masks. So not everybody is open in terms of
Right.
their profile
And
with this.
in that,
COVID thing.
yeah, in that regard, the township has not said you can mandate masks or not. And I think it's going to be up to each individual's person. I probably would.
As
But
that, as well as vaccination, is that correct?
yes, there's
No one's going to force anybody to get vaccinated either. So there is some risk, especially if there is a spike. I think the government will move very quickly to nail things down again, as they've done. So, but will it be too late? Who knows? I don't know. But
Right.
But
you know, we
you
gotta
can
get
wear a
back- we gotta
mask,
get back to
Jerry,
normal.
you know?
We got to get back to normal. So we're trying, but there still is reservations on the part of a lot of people about this.
It's clearly a couple of us have reservations. I'm willing to try it, assuming we can space people out so that
Right.
in a, I guess it's the new word or phrase of the last year, socially distanced fashion.
I think that should take place, the spacing at least, to make people feel more comfortable if we're meeting. I agree with that.
Plus, with the township committee is obviously going to experience it before anybody, so we can
Right.
see how it works out for them.
Yeah.
Now, the difficulty in part is that the real impact is what happens 3 weeks later. Did somebody get exposed? What happens? You don't know. Just because the meeting went okay, you don't know.
Right.
Just as much as we don't really know yet if there's a problem that came up because of the parties on Memorial Day weekend. It's going to take another couple of weeks to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could go either way. I hear the concerns on both sides. My only suggestion is let the township committee meeting run and see what happens with that. Do we have large crowds? Because my only thing is, I'm going into stores, but I tell you the truth, large stores, I'm wearing a mask even though I don't have to. The people are speaking at these meetings. And I think that's where your greatest risk is. When you're speaking, you're projecting out. And that's when I think the biggest thing is for germs to spread if there is somebody infected. So why don't we first see the township committee meetings, how they turn out, and maybe somebody has a better idea. Quite honestly, I don't think if you opened up the back of the township meeting hall, I don't think going to the senior center is going to get you all that much more space.
No,
And
it's about twice the size.
But even if we open the back, and to me, at least you have more freedom of airflow. That senior center doesn't get too much airflow. I know I'm in for a lot of things.
Yeah. No, I think the senior center is probably about twice the square foot.
Twice? Yeah, that even opening up. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
do we have a consensus for July 21st? Because honestly, I'm going on vacation. It's going to be cutting it close. I come back the 10th, but then have already had their notice out.
Well, as I think our deadline is discussed with Marty is July 1st in order to make any final decision.
What's the meeting date, Loretta? What day are we meeting?
July 21st.
Okay,
and
so I mean, really, it's like the 7th, but they have to know before that. They can't scramble the
Right,
last
they
second.
have to
So
know before
I would
that.
say
Correct.
July 1st as a courtesy to the applicants should be when we decide.
So that I think Loretta, you can bring these concerns to Sharon. July 1st gives us a couple more weeks of data to see if there are any spikes or not. I'm willing to say we can try it, but if somebody else sees something that leads them to say no way, please let me and Loretta know. And I guess together with the township, we'll make a final decision by July 1st. I think the one thing is if something comes up, the Zoom technology still sits there and one can always fall back to it.
Yeah, but I would have to provide that to the
No,
applicant for
correct.
their notice, so.
This is the beginning, yeah.
And let me ask you something. Does it make sense to ask the three applicants how they feel about it, if they feel one way or the other? Because let's say they all say they prefer doing a Zoom, then, that might affect how we decide.
Sure. A little more information wouldn't hurt.
I could do that.
Yeah, see how they
I
feel.
just feel like I'm having mixed feelings. Everybody's a little tentative about should we come back or not, and
And that's consistent with what Sadeka was saying. Maybe it's a little bit early yet.
I would say maybe August 4th, that's the first Wednesday. That'll give enough, that'll be a bit of a compromise on every front, August 4th, and we'll just see what happens once the township opens,
Yeah.
That's
I think that sounds very reasonable, yeah.
So
so
we're
that
keeping,
being said, do you want to do July 21st remotely? Is that what I'm hearing?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you got to do a vote here, Ralph.
Yeah, I'm confused. You're confusing me.
I don't, okay, let's just do a show of hands. It's not a formal vote. How many would like to go back to live for the July meeting?
I would.
Valerie and Dimitri,
I'm
in
halfway.
the middle somewhere.
I'm halfway as well, but I
It's not
want to
halfway. You
But I
gotta-
want to sway one way or another. So I'm going to sway on the conservative side and say I want to wait till August.
Yeah.
But if the rest of the people want to July, I
Then
have no
those
problem.
who want to wait till August.
So Jerry, Francine, Sarika, and Ben.
Four, so that's four that versus two halves. So I
Okay,
think the sense for this group is to wait till August for an in-person meeting and see how it plays out over the summer. My discussion yesterday with Sharon is they're not,
Guys, I'm sorry, I got to drop off the meeting, so we're done, right, Ralph?
other than this.
You can go.
Okay.
We'll continue.
All right, thanks,
Okay.
guys.
Good night.
Say bye.
My discussion with Sharon is the township is not mandating that we go one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So people here want to be a little bit conservative. We'll wait till the August meeting. And the August one's a different story because that's New Horizons.
Right.
And then
Loretta,
by
when is our August? Do we just have the one in August?
Actually, I have a backyard before the New Horizon that was already scheduled.
But that's the same day,
Same date, August
Which-
18th.
18th. So we have plenty of time on the 21st to make a decision and then give them enough lead
Right.
time to get their notices.
Right.
That's what I just didn't know if we had a meeting at the beginning of August. So I just wanted to make sure.
So there's just one meeting in July and one meeting in
In
August.
August, right? Okay.
Right.
For a notice
well-
perspective, we're good.
Thank you all for your thoughts and, yeah, Sareka?
So there's no meeting on July 7th then?
No.
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 we only have one meeting in July and one meeting in August.
Okay.
Let's permit people to do some exciting travel once we start doing so.
Get out of town, I mean, yeah, fast.
Yes. Very
Right.
good. Is there
So
any other
if you wanna know what's upcoming, I have that one application for it's the same date, August 18th, 14 Wild Hedge. It's a backyard. There's an existing porch and they bought the house like that and they want to redo it. And because it was never approved in the first place and it has to come to the board. So I don't think that one's going to be that long. And then not scheduled yet is that Holmdel Adult Daycare in Kohl's Plaza.
Mm-hmm.
I have that coming in. I don't have anything yet on the Enclave, which is at the Potter Farm. I have no further revisions, so that's out in limbo somewhere as well.
Okay.
Yeah, the adult daycare that's in the Kohl's Plaza, one of the vacant stores, there's a proposal for an adult daycare. It's a use variance because a child care center is permitted, but an adult daycare is not.
Right.
Oh,
So that's a wrinkle. I mean, that's going to be, I think, relatively simple because I don't think there's any meaningful change to the site.
Right.
It's been an existing shop.
Are there still any outstanding items necessary for Horizon to be heard, or do we have everything?
I'm sorry, say that again, Jerry?
Is there anything necessary that Horizon still has to submit to us that we've requested, or do we have everything?
No, I think they've submitted everything. The only thing that they have to still present is their planning testimony.
Correct.
And then questions and answers, right?
Right, I mean, that is, take a look at the letter that came a day or two ago from Kate Keller. Because
Right.
that summarizes the planning, the use variance issues, and the kind of testimony they need to present in order to justify per the MLUL, the granting of those variances.
There was a comment in the engineering report about the middle road left turn, which I believe the
Talk
client
about this stuff.
accepted.
We don't want to talk about it here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Talk about that stuff.
any substantive comment has to be on the record during the
All
hearing.
right, I make a motion that we close the meeting for
Wait,
tonight.
Sarika, did you have something to say?
No, I just was saying that I wanted to leave. If-
Oh, okay. So
Okay.
Dimitri and
So you
Sarika.
want to second the motion to adjourn?
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Good evening and thank you.
Good night. Thank
you.
Okay, good night,
Thank you
everyone.
all. Good night.
Right.
Good night.
Night.